What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Stout Out Show, your one-stop shop for all things MMA bets, breakdowns, and predictions. We are back. We made it. The 6-week layoff is done. This Saturday, January 24th, we finally have some MMA back in our lives. UFC 324 is coming at you live and in charge. Main event is going to be Paddy Pimblett taking on Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight strap. Can't wait to get into all these fights. But we're going to start with the prelims and then work our way up to the main event. But it's so good to be back on the YouTube airways and highways and byways. Couldn't be more excited. All right, with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, first fight of the night is going to be Ty Cole Miller taking on Adam Fugitt in a welterweight bout. Ty Cole Miller is your overall favorite. He is minus 395, while Fugitt is a plus 310 dog. All right, guys, Miller is a younger prospect. He's making his way into the UFC. He's 1-0, and he's coming off a unanimous decision win against Jimmy Drago, which happened in August 2025, obviously. August. He's undefeated, but he is really, really good with his takedowns. He's tall and he's rangy, which I really like, and he can measure distance really well. Most of his wins come via decision, but, again, he's 6'2", very, very clear, accurate striking, with good volume. He's not really going to knock you out with one-shot power. I haven't seen that a lot yet, but again, he's going to piece you up. He's going to push the pace. Really, really good cardio as well. He loves using his jabs and straights to control the distance early. It really, really makes his length, uses his length as an advantage. Mixes up levels pretty good, keeps opponents guessing. You best, obviously, one of the best things for striking is if you got good wrestling. If you got good, good wrestling, you can keep your opponent guessing whether, hey, is he going to take me down or is he going to just piece me up in the face or smoke me out? Okay, my big thing with Adam Fugitt is, he's kind of a stepping stone at this point in his career. He's 37. He's kind of old in the tooth for this division. He's coming off of a KO loss against Islam Dulatov, and he's 2-3 in his last 5. His game, again, he's a pressure guy, likes to scramble, likes to keep things at mid-range, build combos, and kind of mix up clinch looks and kind of, pretty much take what the fight gives him, if you will. The big knock on him is what I see is he takes just as much as he gets. And what I mean by that is, according to the statistics, he lands about 4.5 significant strikes, but then he eats another 4.5 too. He's got 46% striking accuracy, but then he only has 51% striking defense. The guy is going to get hit, guys. He's going to get punched in the face. He's going to get, it's not going to be pretty. I mean, he's tough, but again, it's not looking good for him. His path to victory, as I see it, he's a southpaw, so he's got to mean that southpaw discipline. Keep his foot on the outside position, pump the right jab, and really, really make that utilize his straight left to his advantage. He's got to make it a physical fight too. A lot of short elbows in the clinch. Keep it against the fence. Body work is important. Again, don't let it become something that Ty Cole Miller is invested in. And by that I mean, don't let it come at distance. He's got to control the range. Also, protect the reset. After each exchange, exit at an angle. Don't retreat and don't get tracked down. Miller is again, he loves using those jabs and those straights to his advantage. But at the end of the day, I'm saying Ty Cole Miller is going to take this one. I think, most of his wins come by decision, but I can see him getting a late round, probably a late third round TKO if it doesn't go to the distance. But definitely Ty Cole Miller. The only X factor I really see this is definitely structure versus scrapping. Miller's length, his discipline, and his youth give him a really, really clear-cut path to the victory. But again, if Fugitt can, keep it narrower, keep the pressure up, he's got a slight chance to win, but it's just not. I don't see it in the card. So anyway, I'm going Ty Cole Miller. Goes the distance, unanimous decision for the win. We have Ricky Turcios taking on Cameron Smotherman, and this is a bantamweight bout. Turcios is a plus 160 underdog, while Smotherman is a minus 192 favorite. Turcios is a 2-3. He's 2-3 in the UFC, and he's coming off against that unanimous decision loss to Bernardo Sopai that happened in January. Okay, Turcios is riding a 2-fight losing streak, but he's got that relentless, Scrambler. He's constantly moving, foot on the gas, really, really good with chain wrestling. Doesn't really enter at good, clean angles, but he keeps it dirty. he lives for, I like to say, like the pace wars. If I can keep it, keep the guy on the ground, keep him against the fence, I'm going to try to outpoint him, kind of grind out the decision for the win. He's really durable too, which I kind of like too. I mean, he's going to eat a couple shots coming in, but he's got a semi-good chin. Again, not a very big power puncher, pretty much a big volume guy. If he's going to get you, he's going to do, it's going to be death by 1,000 paper cuts, death by 1,000 punches. Smotherman, on the other hand, again, he's also riding a 2-fight losing streak too. He's coming off unanimous decision loss against the Ricky Simon. That happened in June. But I think Smotherman, he's the younger fighter. He's the not hungrier in the sense, but again, I feel like he has not had the momentum that he needs right now. I always see a glimpse of like, okay, dude, this could be like one of the next guys up, or like a list of maybe top 15, like at the bottom end of the top 15, maybe 14, 16, something like that. But again, he's got good cardio. He can push the pace. I really, really like that. He likes to, kind of have that grinding tempo, but his striking is kind of limited though. It's not the best. It's definitely not, the best, but it's kind of below average at best. It's he's not afraid to tie up guys, keeps the fight chaotic, and that's how he stays keeps it competitive. On the other hand, if I'm looking at the X factors for this, it's kind of the chaos versus grind. It's whoever dictates the rhythm of the fight, who can control like the takedowns and cut off the cage. That's who's going to get the win. Personally, for me, I think Smotherman's going to get it. I think Smotherman's going to grind out the win. It's going to go the distance. I really, really, really like his again, where he's been at in his previous fights in terms of his tempo, in terms of his takedowns. But I just don't see Ricky Turcios pulling this one out. But anyway, on to the next one. Next up, we got Josh Hokit taking on Denzel Freeman in a heavyweight bout. All right, Josh Hokit is a minus 230, and Denzel Freeman is a plus 190. Guys, once I do best bets in my reels for Instagram, this is going to be one of my locks, okay? I think it's Josh Hokit round 1 or early round 2 KO. Josh Hokit's got all the tools. I think he's going to be next up in terms of the heavyweight division. He's coming off of a great TKO win against Max Jimenez. He knocked him out in the first round. That happened back in November. He's riding a 7-fight win streak right now, guys. Literally all of his wins are all by finishes. He is and not all knockouts either. He subbed a couple guys too. Now, granted, some are on the regional scene. I get that, so the competition may not be there. But again, dude, he is really, really about that life, dude. Great athlete, former NFL caliber player, former collegiate wrestler at Fresno State. He's really good, dude. He can take the fight wherever it wants to go. I guess if there's a knock on him per se, other than his post-fight callouts, whatever it is, what it is. But I still find him entertaining. Fuck it. The Colby Covington of the heavyweight division, even though I don't think he's a big Colby Covington fan. But like I was saying, he's kind of shorter for the heavyweight division. He's only 6'1", so his reach isn't really there as much as some other guys would like it to be. But again, dude, his power in both of his hands is where it's at, dude. I'm pretty impressed by that. Denzel Freeman, on the other hand, for those who didn't see that, he had a unanimous decision win against the Polish guy, Marek Buljo. That happened in November. That fight was nothing to be proud of. I thought that fight was boring. That fight sucked. They cut Borjo literally 3 days after the fight. I mean, it was nothing to be pumped up. Freeman's, with respect, former United States Marine. Thank you for your service. He's a pressure wrestler, grinder. His game just revolves around, closing the distance, clinching, and then pursuing the takedowns. I think one of the big knocks on his is once he gets you down, he really has a hard time imposing his will and taking, better position. Josh Hokit, being a collegiate wrestler, is going to, make him work for that fucking takedown if he can get it. Another knock on Freeman is that, he's got, his striking is really limited. He's got predictable entries, and he's really, really a minimal threat at range. He really wants to get that, like I said, get clinch work in and keep it against the cage. Good at forcing takedowns. The foundation of his fighting is wrestling, but I just think that he's definitely not on the same level as Josh Hokit. The X factor for me in this is going to be explosiveness versus endurance. Hokit's going to leverage the situation if he can get his strength and get his power and explosiveness off in the first round, which I pretty much, I'm going to definitely going to take the money with this one and say he will. I'm saying Josh Hokit, TKO, KO, round 1. That's a lock. Michael Johnson taking on Alexander Hernandez in a lightweight bout. Michael Johnson, dude, reaching Unk status. Oh, sorry, he's a plus 124 underdog, while Alexander Hernandez is a minus 148 favorite. Michael Johnson is saying he has reached Unk status, but he is putting on a run for for us old guys. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He just got a unanimous decision win against Daniel Zahuber that happened in July. Again, man, every time you want to count Michael Johnson out, dude, he's coming through, dude. He's 16-15 in the UFC, but he's still putting on some really good fights. Really good hand speed, one of the best still for light heavyweight. Can dart in and out, which in position. And it's going to be really, really hard to surprise Michael Johnson with looks, dude. He has fought literally everybody in the who's who in the lightweight division. He hasn't always won against those people, but he can make it a fight. Not really good in the takedown department. I should say knockdown. Good in the takedown department. Wrestling really isn't his strong suit. He uses it mainly as like defensively instead of offensively. Big sprawl and brawl type guy. Quick get ups, and then he likes to reset back to keeping it the mid range. Pumping out the jab and like looking for clean counters. Like I said. Oh, speaking of counters, his straight left hand, guys. If he can get a read on his opponent with that thing is coming down the pipe and it is coming fast. That he catches a lot of people with that. I've always noticed that. But going on to Alexander Hernandez, again, everybody knows him for when he fought Donald Cerrone, got his shit kicked in, ass whipped for talking shit. But he's putting on a good 3-fight win streak too, and I think he's finally coming into his own into the lightweight division. Great win against Cole Miller, fucking knocked his shit in, and good win again, and he had a good unanimous decision win against Diego Ferreira in September. Explosive striker and a wrestler, and he's good. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's fine. Again, looks like he's finally settled into his own. It took him a while, but again, he relies really heavily on his speed and his power and explosiveness. He likes to overwhelm his opponents in the first round right off the rip. If he can't get that first round, going, his explosiveness kind of fades in the later rounds. He has really straight line entries, which I'm not a big fan of. So that can definitely be timed and be countered, i.e. from Michael Johnson's straight left hand. But he's good. He's strong in the clinch, capable of, muscling opponents down, muscling them to the fence. And, he hits opportunistic takedowns when they're available. If I'm guessing, I'm saying, not guessing, but what I'm saying, I'm going to go Alexander Hernandez, TKO, if not going the distance. But I think Michael Johnson, while he's doing great, don't get me wrong, shout out to Michael Johnson, I think his chin is nowhere near where it was, early in his career. I think his chin is withered away. He's definitely hittable, and Alexander Hernandez has the power to put people away. So if he doesn't do it in the first round, I'm going to say it's going to happen in late round 3, but definitely Alexander Hernandez, TKO, by victory. The X factor, this is going to be rhythm versus aggression, guys, and whoever controls the first half of the fight likely controls the rest of it. Like I said, if Johnson wins, he's going to win with speed and timing, and he wants that space to operate. Hernandez, on the other hand, he wants to turn into a physical, high-pressure fight and do it early without burning out in the second and third rounds. But anyway, Alexander Hernandez, TKO, either round 1 or 3. I'm calling it for there. All right, guys, next up we got Alex Perez taking on Charles Johnson in the flyweight division. Alex Perez is a plus 170 dog, while Charles Johnson is your minus 205 favorite. All right, Alex Perez is 8-6 in the UFC, and he's coming off a sub-loss against Asu Almobayev. Not to mention he's riding a 2-fight win streak, and if the cards couldn't stack up anymore against my boy, he's also 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Not that great. All right, he's a pressure wrestler / striking hybrid. Again, I like how he pushes the pace. He mixes his boxing combinations really well, and he does that all to get level changes. He likes to force his opponents into defensive reactions. If he can get his opponents down and get in top control, it's his world. That's where he's comfortable. That's where he likes securing the rounds. Very good for him. Also, good cardio and pace for Alex Perez as well. When he's healthy, he can maintain that grinding tempo. That I'm going to see it through for all 3 rounds. I'm not going to get tired, and I can wither away my opponents. Unfortunately, striking is where his ability is kind of limited. It's not the best, but it's not the worst either. But he can be hit by sharp counter punches, and that's what again, Charles Johnson lives for that. Also, he can, at times he tends to be overly focused on, Alex Perez does. He tends to be overly focused on control. He'll allow, that kind of allows his opponents to steal rounds. He can get swept. He's not really doing damage. He's more doing the, Dagestani shuffle where he gets on top of you, doesn't really do much, but just, rides it out for the rounds. Not the most exciting, but again, he's still controlling his opponent. Like I said, strong chain takedowns, really high on Perez for that. Also, especially effective against opponents who struggle against the fence. Loves pushes up opponents against the fence, get that clinch or get those underhooks down and get you down to the ground. Charles Johnson, on the other hand, he's 7-5 in the UFC, and he's putting together a little bit of a streak. He's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and he's coming off a great KO win against Kavanaugh. That happened in August. He operates best at the mid-range. He likes to push the pace with combinations, jabs, and kicks. And he's not really looking for that single power shot, but he's definitely like a volume guy. Throws consistently, obviously judges like that. The more, volume, the more, consistent, looks better, looks more damaged. Defensively, though, he does have some gaps. He can get hit clearly. Definitely when when he's pushing forward, he can get caught with some counters. Do I think that's going to happen in this fight? No. Versus elite grapplers, versus average wrestlers and grapplers, Charles Johnson can definitely hold his own. Versus elite guys, not so much. Elite guys could definitely hold their own against Charles Johnson by maintaining top control, taking him down at will. Do I think Alex Perez is that guy? Do I think Alex Perez can take Charles Johnson down at will? No, I don't think that's happening at all. I mean, the X factor for me for this one, this is simply control versus cardio. Whoever dictates where the fight's going to go, that's who's going to win. Perez wants to force the wrestling action and, keeps his scrambles safe. Johnson, on the other hand, if he keeps the space, maintains his striking volume, and drags the fight like into deep waters, I think it's his all the way. I'm saying Charles Johnson's going to get this one. I don't think it's going to go the distance. I'm going to say late round 2 TKO or early round 3 KO, but Charles Johnson's definitely walking away with this one, in my opinion. He's definitely putting together a hot streak. All right, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got Nikita Krylov, ranked number 13, taking off Modestas Bukauskas. Krylov's your 124 favorite, and Bukauskas is your minus 148. Bukauskas is your minus 148 favorite, and Krylov is your plus 124 dog. This is a chance for Bukauskas to get into the top 15. He's knocking on the door. He's riding this awesome 4-fight win streak, and he just got that KO win against Paul Craig back in September. And, pretty much Paul Craig called it quits after that. He's retired. He's got a good range discipline, and he's really technical. I love how he sticks to he is really a guy that sticks to the game plan. He knows what he wants to do. The problem with, Bukauskas is that when he smells blood in the water, he doesn't become aggressive enough to me. He really kind of takes his time. He rather is very controlled, very tempoed. We need urgency. Knock him out. But again, he's on a 4-fight win streak, so who am I to talk shit? Very structured in his game plan, like I said. He doesn't panic really that much. He's really comfortable winning rounds, and again, he doesn't really fold under pressure. Grappling for Bukauskas is, it's fundamental. It's not functional, meaning it's defensive, not offensive. Not really looking too much for the takedowns, but again, he's got that good volume of strikes and his good accuracy. He's not really that that sniper with one shot going to catch you in the chin or the temple and smoke you out. That's not happening. He really likes to work behind his jab, that straight right, and good teeps or kicks to the leg as well. I see if it can go Krylov's way, if he, fighters who force, clinches for Bukauskas up against the fence and, disrupt his rhythm, that really fucks him up. Fighters who thrive in scrambles also pose a really big threat to Bukauskas. Unfortunately, Krylov, he's 11-9 in the UFC, super inconsistent. He's just coming off that KO loss against Bogdan Guskov, and he's also riding a 2-fight win streak. I like Krylov. He's very high paced. He's got a pretty good hybrid of striking and wrestling, but again, he's not overly aggressive either. The grappling's more opportunistic. He'll attack when he sees the best opportunity for it. Like, it really comes at different angles that his opponents don't see. Especially in transition and scrambles. But again, he's very hittable. Especially during his aggressive entries. Versus clean boxers or guys with elite striking, straight punches give Nikita Krylov trouble. They're coming down the pipe and they can find his face pretty accurately. And like I said, he's very inconsistent. He's going to put together a streak of 2, might lose 3, super inconsistent. So I'm going to say Bukauskas. I'm going to say this is going to be a round 2 KO straight up. I really like the streak that Bukauskas is putting together. It's, he's definitely going to crack the top 15 if he wins this. So my money's on Bukauskas for this one. Next up, we have Ateba Gautier versus Andrey Pulyaev in the middleweight division. Ateba Gautier is minus 850 favorite, while Pulyaev is a plus 575 dog. All right, guys, this is one of my locks for the week. If obviously Vegas sees it that way too. The young Cameroonian Ateba Gautier is legit, dude. He's 4-0 in the UFC, coming off a KO win against Tristan Vines that happened in October, and he's riding an 8-fight win streak. The dude has some serious power in both hands. He's an explosive power striker. He is going to put you to sleep. And he's super young, too. He's only 23. Very fast twitch explosiveness, strong frame, and good physical presence for the division, especially in middleweight. His offense sometimes is predictable at times, just simply because he's looking for power shots. People can see it coming. But again, if he's riding an 8-fight win streak, not a lot of people are seeing it coming. I mean, they might know he's coming to knockout, but you got to fucking stop it to stop it. You know what I mean? He can be hittable during exchanges and, scrambles, but again, he's got a good chin, really, really doing well for himself in the UFC. In terms of Pulyaev, he's 2-1. He's coming off that TKO win against Nick Klein that happened in August, and he's got good functional grappling. Not the best. Do I think he's going to be able to take Ateba Gautier down? Not really. Pulyaev likes to move forward. He's closing the distance, likes to force those exchanges, and, he's really looking for like a technical kickboxing match more than an MMA match. He's going to try to keep that, again, try to close the distance, getting those clinches. His grappling, like I said, he's not looking to take you down, but it's primarily to survive at this point. He's going to take you, if he does take you to the ground, on the other hand, he's going to force opponents backward, going to, force him to have a very, very high work rate, get him tired, get him into those deep waters, hopefully get something into the later rounds, That style can be good or bad, dependent. If his cardio isn't up to snuff, that could hurt him in the later rounds. But again, this, for the X factor purposes, I think this is explosiveness versus pressure. The first 5 to 7 minutes, that's going to decide everything for this fight. If Gautier can get his striking off, he's going to fucking seal the deal. Round 1 KO. If Pulyaev wins, if he grabs Gautier in the later rounds, higher pressure, higher tempo, tire him out, possibly trying to grind out a decision. Do I think that's going to happen? Absolutely not. This is going to be the Stout Out, one of my 3 locks for the fights tonight. I'm going to say Gautier by finish, I'm going to say by knockout finish, but this is not going the distance. I'm going to say round 2 KO, Ateba Gautier. Final fight on the prelims is going to be number 2, Umar Nurmagomedov, taking on number 6, Deiveson Figueiredo in the bantamweight division. This is your number 1 highest rated odds fight of the night. At this time I'm filming it, Umar Nurmagomedov is a minus 1350, while Deiveson Figueiredo is a plus 800 dog. All right, Nurmagomedov, he's coming off a unanimous decision win against Mario Batista that happened back in October, and he's 7-1 in UFC. Obviously, he got that loss against Merab. Nurmagomedov's cardio wasn't there. I guess he didn't think that Merab could go that hard that long, but that's what really won it for Merab. His wrestling was on point that night. But again, Nurmagomedov, he's had some time off. Again, his wrestling and positional control is the elite of the elite. Rides your hips, great chain takedowns, and really, really gonna look for that opportunistic choke and or armbar. Good fight IQ too. He rarely rushes, he's just like, he's Khabib. He's like Khabib in that nature. He's not going to rush the fight. He's going to make opponents work while he stays efficient. He's the thing that I don't like about Umar is kind of the same with all the Dagestani guys, is that they're looking for control rather than the finish. I don't have elite one-shot power. I don't have really great combinations. It's more or less, I'm going to try to ride you to the ground and then just, control. Islam Makhachev is not fit that model. Don't get me wrong. Islam is always looking for the finish, but Umar and Khabib, they always kind of look for that. Hey, if you can stop me, stop me. But if you can't, fuck you. I'm taking you to the ground anyway. Again, good, pretty not the best striking, but it's good. It's he's hard to hit, got good defensive posture, rolls with his punches. As far as striking volume, it's clean, but it's not really a high output. It's set up for the takedown at the end of the day. Deiveson Figueiredo, solid vet in the UFC, 13-5-1. Coming off of a solid split decision against Montel Jackson. That happened also in October. Good power striker, also an elite submission guy. Do I think now, obviously I have Umar winning this one, but I have Umar winning it by decision. I think Deiveson Figueiredo, he's got enough, jiu-jitsu skills and grappling shots to avoid the, submission. Do I think he'll fight him off for 3 rounds, but I think he's just going to get takedown after takedown after takedown after takedown. The big knock on Figueiredo is basically, when opponents outwork him, that's when he's going to slip, and I think Umar is that's exactly the game plan. It's going to be, let's touch the gloves within 45 seconds, first takedown. And then it's going to go build and build and build and build. Deiveson Figueiredo, he's not going to get tired though. He's got good cardio management, really high gas tank, and he likes those, he can do those short outbursts that are explosive outbursts throughout the fights. He doesn't do it through the whole 5 rounds, but he's going to do 30 seconds here, 30 seconds here, which I like. For credit to Deiveson Figueiredo, though, he's one of the best opportunistic finishers in the bantamweight division. If the submission's there, he's going to take it and he's going to seal the deal. He's done that in the past. I just think that the odds are too stacked against him in this one. Again, this is control versus violence in terms of X factors. Umar's system, again, it's pretty much versus Deiveson's chaos. One clean moment is going to, define everything. If Deiveson Figueiredo can clip Umar coming in, that's going to change the architecture of the fight. But do I think that's going to happen? No. Umar is going to keep this fight very, very structured, and stick to the game plan. Takedown after takedown after takedown. Figueiredo, if he can turn those transitions into chaotic scrambles and maybe take the back or maybe look, to sink in either a crazy guillotine choke or just sweep him and to possibly get into a lucky armbar. I just don't see it happening. Umar's too structured for that. But that's going to wrap up for the prelims. Again, Umar Nurmagomedov, that's probably my second lock for the night. I'm going to build in a parlay later on. I'll put that on Instagram. But Umar Nurmagomedov, 100% by decision, winning all 3 rounds. All right. Hey everybody, just taking a quick break from the video to say if you like what you're seeing, like what you're hearing, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know how you're doing with the picks in the comment section, and don't forget to share the video. So again, look forward to seeing and hearing from you in the future, and on to the main card. All right, later. All right, guys, next we got the main card. Starting off that with is Arnold Allen taking on Jan Silva in a featherweight bout. Arnold Allen is your number 6 ranked featherweight at a plus 225, while Jan Silva is your number 10 ranked at a minus 278 favorite. All right, Arnold Allen, he's 11-2 in the UFC. He's coming off a pretty good KO win against Giga Chikadze. That didn't happen, that happened in July of 2024. So he's taken some time since his last fight. He's 3-2 in his last 5, but again, he's never been finished. Really, really prefers his measured striking, which I do like. Hides behind his jabs, straight punches, calf kicks, and, paired with intelligent clinch work, pretty goddamn hard opponent, especially when it comes to the grappling realm. He's got the defense-first mindset, which I do like as well. He minimizes damage, he wins his exchanges, and, he manages rounds intelligently. Got a good game plan going in. And also, if I haven't mentioned that, good fight IQ as well. Sharp jabs, disciplined guard, and again, efficient footwork. His durability and toughness is pretty good as well, too, man. He's willing to go through the fire to secure the takedown and, to secure the clinch and get a good frame and take him down. On the other hand, again, his output optics aren't great. He's not looking for that one-shot knockout. He's against high-volume guys. He's going to get outpointed, and, kind of that can, lose the round for him as well. Limited finishing urgency. He's happy to get top control and top position, but it's really hard for him. Not really hard for him, but it's he's not looking to finish the round. He'd rather just finish the fight. He's looking to win the round. The other good news is, though, he stays calm against aggressive opponents. He doesn't chase chaos, unlike Jan Silva. Jan Silva's 13-1 in the UFC. He's just coming off that TKO loss against Diego Lopez. That happened in September. If you haven't seen it, Jan Silva's, chasing Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez just does that spinning elbow and just drops him cold right in the fucking head. That's his lone That was his lone loss, and he was on a 6-fight winning streak prior to that. He is one of the heaviest hitters that the featherweight division has, man. He's got some real stopping power in both hands. Good tempo, really good on the gas. And when he smells blood in the water, he swarms with bad intentions. He's hunting for the finish. Good tactician. Obviously, he fights out of the fighting nerd system. Really good game plan going in. On the bad side, though, those game plans kind of go out of the window because once he smells blood in the water, he gets really uber aggressive, and that can lead to counters as it did to Diego Lopez. In terms of grappling, offensively, he's solid, but I don't think he's the best. It's good enough to survive, but again, he's hunting people for finishes, in striking. The biggest X factor I see for this fight is experience versus structure all day. And, when it comes to Jan Silva, he's youthful, he's violent, and whoever controls the tempo of the fight decides the fight, at the end of the day. If Allen wants to keep this measured, a tactical brawl, and make Jan Silva make mistakes, he's going to take it. Silva, on the other hand, he's going to be high tempoed, foot on the gas, and he's going to look for very, very solid exchanges. I got Silva winning this one. I got him winning by decision. I don't think he's going to drop Arnold Allen, but I think Allen's going to, play the clinch game in round one. But again, I think Silva's going to, fight him off, can work it off, and then just start really, really outpointing him and just, outstriking him. So Jan Silva going the distance for that. All right, next up in the women's flyweight division, we got number 2, Natalia Silva, taking on number 6, Rose Namajunas. All right, Natalia Silva is 7-0 in the UFC. She's coming off a unanimous decision win against. She's coming off her last win. She's riding a 13-fight win streak. Okay, she's a mobile, technical striker with very, very solid kickboxing fundamentals. She mixes good, takedowns when they're timely and when they're efficient, but she can really, really string anything she wants along too, especially clinch control as well. Takedowns aren't her primary identity, but again, she can do it when she wants to. Very, very, the big thing I like about her, she's very hard to corral, very hard for her opponents to cut off the cage against her. She's got elite footwork and one of the quickest movers in the division. Her composure is pretty solid too. She rarely panics. Definitely looking to mix it up in terms when she gets in the pocket, but she mains structure under pressure. Very low risk tendency too. Comfortable winning rounds. Hey, she's not going to finish. It's okay. She knows she won the round. We're on to the next. While defensively sound when it comes to scrambling, she can overextend in grappling sometimes, but that's still a question that's yet to be answered if people can really hold her down and maintain top position. I see, if anybody wants to, is going to try to win, their clearest path to victory against Silva is going to be fighters who force her, against the fence, reduce her biggest advantages when it comes to striking and her moving, and try to take her down and keep her on the ground and work for that, like a possible submission or unanimous decision. Rose Namajunas, on the other hand, she's coming off a great, unanimous decision win against Miranda Maverick that happened in June. What's not to say about Rose Namajunas? She's a great counter striker, with elite movement. She's, thrives on that southpaw stance, uses angles, feints, and timing really, really well. She loves drawing her opponents in, making them overextend, and then they're making mistakes, and then she counters really, really quickly. Really good at reading opponents, especially, and landing first. As I said, uses lateral movement pretty well. I just think for Rose, I just don't think her head's in it anymore. I think she's getting close to the end zone. She's, she doesn't take fights as much as I thought she would. It's like once every 4 to 5 months. She's, when it comes to urgency, she's super inconsistent. She she kind of falls back and lets the round slip away from her, and again, her confidence gets affected when that happens. When she loses a round, she just kind of just is like, okay, looks like she's just happy to finish the fight. In terms of X factors, I got this is, speed versus initiative versus timing and experience. Okay. Small moments in this fight are going to decide everything. Silva is going to win if she outworks Rose with movement, volume, and, clean exits. Rose, on the other hand, she wants to control the space, land the clean counters, and disrupt stuff with grappling. I think Natalie Silva is just going to outclass her all day long. I think Natalie Silva's on, she's going to be champion pretty soon. She's going to she's next up. Rose is going to be a good test for her, but I just don't think Rose has got enough in the tank. I'm going to say Natalie Silva. She's going to win this one via decision. She's just going to, dominate all 3 rounds. Next up, in the heavyweight division, we have number 5 ranked Waldo Cortes-Acosta versus Derek Lewis, who is ranked number 8. Derek Lewis is your plus 275 dog, while Waldo Cortes-Acosta is your minus 345 favorite. Waldo Cortes-Acosta, my arch rival. I bet against this dude 3 times in 2025, and I have lost all 3 times in 2025. Every time I think he's going to lose, he wins. He is literally cost me more money than 2 ex-wives put together. Okay? He's coming off a KO win against Shamil Gaziev, and that happened in November. I thought he was losing against the fight before that against Ante Delia. Ante Delia hurt him. I thought he was going to finish him. Obviously, it was an eye poke. They split him up. Waldo Cortes-Acosta got his win back, wound up finishing the fight. I really thought Delia had him. I thought he was going to finish it there. Cortes-Acosta's boxing is really solid for the heavyweight division. It's probably, upper echelon of top 3. Sharp jabs, straight rights, and compact hooks. He rarely overextends. He prefers those mid-range exchanges, and he loves his picking shots and staying defensively responsible. Really good technician. Fights in that tight guard, measured footwork, and again, like I said, straight punches rather than looping fucking overhand bombs or fucking crazy uppercuts. Also, at times he's got that low output stretches. Against busier fighters, it might look like he's losing rounds, but he's just measuring a good counter or a good correct shot. His takedown defense is yet to be decided. He's a good, solid, sprawl and brawl type guy. Hasn't got a really good wrestler yet. Is this fight going to the ground? 100% not. Derek Lewis is definitely not looking to take him to the ground. The last thing I'll say about Waldo Cortes-Acosta in terms of that, he's content to just win the round and not finish the fight. He's cool with winning the decision. He's not going, again, barely measured, not trying to throw those bombs. All right, Derek Lewis, the Black Beast. What's not to say about him? 20-10 in the UFC, coming off a TKO win against Talishin Teixeira. That happened in July, and he's riding a 2-fight win streak. We've seen this time and again with Derek Lewis, where people count him out, and then he gets on a little hot streak, and then he decides to just destroy all these young up-and-coming fighters with one-shot knockouts. Derek Lewis, again, he's not looking to take you to the ground. He's not some fucking wizard jiu-jitsu guy. He is fucking this beast with a power right hand, and he's looking to put you to sleep. Gas tank, everybody knows it's really not there when it comes to the later rounds. He's trying to look to put you out of there in the first or second round. The big thing with him is, it's low activity when it comes to those later rounds. If it gets to those, if it gets to there, the chances of him winning a decision, very, very rare, just because he's so tired. Good explosive bursts, short sudden combinations that, catches opponents mid-entry. And like I said, his fight-ending power is second to none. In terms of X factors, this is, process versus chaos. Derek Lewis, has to have, for Waldo Cortes-Acosta to win this, he's got to have perfect fight discipline. If that works, he's going to catch, Derek Lewis coming in, good counter, and drop him like he did Shamil Gaziev. Again, that's the type of fighter is. Derek Lewis, on the other hand, if he wants Waldo Cortes to make one mistake, and he's got the green light. He can take you out with one shot. And that's all it takes. I know a lot of people are taking Waldo Cortes-Acosta. I think I got Derek, and this is, again, I could be wrong again in terms of me betting against Waldo Cortes-Acosta for the 4th time. But I think Derek Lewis is going to win KO round 1. I think he's got the power. He's still, gas tank's probably not there, but he's still got the power in the right hand. Got to put Waldo Cortes-Acosta to sleep. I'm going Derek Lewis KO round 1. This fight is not going the distance. Best case, it goes into round 2, but I do not see this fight, somebody winning a unanimous decision in this one. But Derek Lewis KO. On to your co-main event. We got Sugar Sean O'Malley taking on Song Yadong in the bantamweight division. Sean O'Malley is your number 3 ranked at minus 205, while Song Yadong is number 5 at plus 170 underdog. All right, Sugar Sean, he's 11-3-1 in the UFC, and he's just coming off the submission loss to Marab. That happened in June, and he's actually fighting somebody that's not named Merab. Went back-to-back against him, lost back-to-back against him. The thing I liked about Sean is basically he's a long-range sniper. He's a good switch stance. He builds, his bread and butter is distance management. Really good at using teeps, adapts mid-range when the fight continues, or mid-fight. Loves when he draws opponents into entries and just crushes, body shots. Wrestling in terms of him, it's, he can get taken down, but he's got up a couple times against Merab, in the beginning. Do I think Song Yadong is on the level of Merab in terms of wrestling? No, not even close. Song Yadong's got good wrestling, but it's not great. Sticking with Sean though, he's patient. He's really selective with his shots, and he doesn't waste shots. He's a very, very good sniper when it comes to those. Very good accuracy, and loves using his long limbs to keep the fight at range. I don't know if it's still an issue, but his calf kicks, people that use calf kicks against him, that's always usually a vulnerable spot against him. That's happened against him when he went against Chito Vera. But again, we'll see what happens in terms of, is he back from his injury? Is he fully recovered? That's yet to be decided. Song Yadong, he's 3-0 in the UFC. He's coming off that tech decision win against Henry Cejudo, the eye poke of doom. They called the fight. Song Yadong, obviously he's wrestling, he trains with Uriah Faber. Good explosive power, good wrestler. He prefers his mid-range exchanges. He can unleash fast, powerful combos pretty good, and he's good level threat changer too. What I do really like about him is what should be a note. He's got to be one of the fastest punchers at 135. Really capable of sudden momentum changes and knockdowns. He throws that 2-4 punch sequence with real snap and real power, especially when he steps behind the jab. He can absorb some shots too. He's got good durability. It's going to take a couple shots to put him away. In terms of pace management, he starts hot. Sometimes he settles into a little lower rhythm, lower output. It's not a good look for the judges. But in terms of, ways to beat Song Yadong, this is a great matchup for Sean O'Malley. People who beat Song Yadong really, are fighters who stay long and angle off and really frustrate his forward pressure. In terms of, X factors for this one, this is speed versus precision all day long. A small mistake is going to decide everything. Song's going to win if he turns this into a fast-paced boxing match, physical pressure. O'Malley, on the other hand, he's going to want to control distance and punish entries and stay clean. Me personally, I'm going with the underdog with this one. I think Song is going to take it. I think Song is going to be more technical, and I also think Sean O'Malley's kind of looking past Song Yadong. He's looking for the next big fight. I don't think he looks at Song Yadong as a real challenger. Song Yadong looked really good against Henry Cejudo to me. Really good boxing, and he's stepping into his own. So I'm going to say Song Yadong, it's going to go the distance. I don't think he puts away Sean O'Malley, but I do think he's going to, or submits him, but I do think he's going to outpoint him. Song Yadong for the win, unanimous decision. And on to the main fight. We got Justin Gaethje taking on Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. All right, Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight strap. Paddy the Baddy is minus 230 favorite, while Gaethje's your plus 190 dog. Paddy's currently ranked number 5. Justin Gaethje's ranked number 4. All right, this is not to be said, but if Justin Gaethje loses this fight, it's got to be the end, right? He's got to be retiring. He's done everything he could do in his career. If he wins this, he's going to be the 2-time interim lightweight champ. I don't think that's ever happened before. But if he doesn't, I think he's just going to throw in the towel. Gloves are going to be left in the center of the cage. That's a wrap. Had a pretty good outing against Figueiredo that happened in March of 2025. Good pressure striker. Everybody knows Justin Gaethje's good for his leg kicks. Super violent guy, in terms of throwing hard hooks and hard straight punches. His wrestling is good, but in terms of, I also was thinking about this. Paddy's bread and butter is obviously the ground. Is Justin Gaethje a better wrestler than Michael Chandler? I don't think so. I think Michael Chandler, in terms just of wrestling, not overall MMA, I'm just terms of wrestling, I think Michael Chandler is better than Justin Gaethje is. But it's a hidden layer in, Justin Gaethje's framework. He doesn't use it that well, but he can, sprawl and brawl, defend the takedown pretty well. In terms of, his hands, he's got some real power in his hands, even at his age. he's going to swing big. He's going to swing for the fences, and he's going to look to put you out. I really don't think Paddy the Baddy has seen anybody like that in terms of who he's faced when it comes to the UFC. Paddy the Baddy can get cracked at times, but we'll get into that in a second. The things that's going to frustrate Justin Gaethje is when he's forced to reset repeatedly. If opponents who deny his exchanges, they angle out, they set up the jab and teep really well. That can make him chase opponents, and that really frustrates Justin Gaethje. But Gaethje's path to victory is pretty easy. He's going to punish Paddy the Baddy's legs with calf kicks and leg kicks, and just make him and really, really, really utilize his clinch and grappling skills, more or less his clinch. Utilize those knees, utilize those tight elbows, and make Paddy the Baddy just wish he wasn't in there in terms of striking. All right, Paddy the Baddy, on the other hand, he's undefeated in the UFC, coming off a great submission win against Michael Chandler, that happened in April, and he's riding like a 9-fight win streak, dude. He is really pressure-based, and he loves that scrappy striking mixed in with that, slick submission games. He loves that grappling first mentality. He's happier than a pig in shit when he, fights turn chaotic and he can take the back or find guillotines and, scramble for excellent positions. Very good instincts when it comes to the ground. Very dangerous, and once the fight that hits the match, that's his world. Good at really jumping on those submissions. And he's pretty creative when it comes to scrambles too. He can turn messy positions into comfortable positions and, really find, his own into taking his opponent's back. On the bad side though, defensively, Paddy the Baddy definitely has some holes when it comes to striking. His hands are low, his chin is high, and he enters in wide, which kind of leaves him to be hit clean and good for counters. Especially from guys like disciplined like Justin Gaethje. If Justin Gaethje is going to find your chin or find your legs, he's going to find it. Paddy the Baddy has to tighten up his defense on that aspect. Paddy the Baddy, clearest thing for him to do: survive the early storm, force grappling and clinch chains, and basically make Justin Gaethje carry his weight while limiting those like free swing exchanges. Paddy the Baddy and Justin Gaethje are not going to do what him and Max Holloway and meet in the center of the cage and then swing for the fences. That is not happening. That is not Paddy the Baddy's game. In terms of X factors, I think Gaethje wins the fight if he stays structured and violence really attacks the leg and counters well. Paddy, on the other hand, he's going to win if he turns it into messy chaos in terms of scrambling and taking down Paddy and trying to find his back. I think I got Paddy the Baddy winning this one, second round or third round submission. Take Justin Gaethje into the deep waters, kind of get him up against the fence, take him down, or get in those messy scrambles and get the rear naked choke in. So I got Paddy the Baddy submission, new lightweight champ, and then it's all day. Then does he fight Armand next? Who knows? But I got Paddy the Baddy winning that one. Anyway, that's it for this one for Stout Out. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. All right.